Desert, California. With me, you know her as 99 World Cup winner, Saskia Weber. And joining us as a special panelist today, the one and only Stan Anderson, founder of Campshutout. And the reason that we have Stan Anderson joining us as a special panelist today is because we have the man, the myth, the legend of the Campshutout group me that I constantly see over and over and over again. We got Charlie Lyon, recently retired MLS goalkeeper. Charlie, thanks for joining us on this lovely afternoon. I like the fact that you said you want to get back to LA and you got the solid hipster look going, so you're ready to go.
I'll fit right in. No one will be any of the wiser that I'm not from there.
You know, you had no idea that Stan was coming on right here. So how do you feel now that your former youth coach is joining us on this podcast? Do you feel, are you more relaxed, or are you like, oh God? Ugh.
No, I'm stoked because I was talking to him on the phone a little bit ago and he didn't tell me he was going to be on. Stan's quite the magician when it comes to yep, he got mind games.
Well, yeah. Well, let's delve a little bit into this right now. So obviously, you know, today's topic is we are going to be talking about youth players training with multiple teams and how that affects them, whether it's beneficial, whether it's detrimental. But for a lot of people out there who might not kind of be familiar with your journey, why don't you first off let everybody know is that you just recently made an announcement, right?
Yep. Just announced my retirement from professional soccer, so closing out a 6-year career and ultimately what I think is roughly a 23-year pursuit of the game as a player.
Wow. I mean, you know, honestly, I mean, one of those things is like it's really cool when, you know, people have had all these different types of experiences, you know, and they can kind of come back on here, you know, and kind of, I don't want to say reflect on them, but like, I mean, we're even going to maybe look at some clips of you know, from the past and stuff like that. But just, you know, a lot of the people out there, you know, they might not be familiar with the fact that you actually spent some time doing what was called being an MLS pool goalkeeper. Why don't you explain what that was?
Yeah, so that was my existence as utility goalkeeper for the league. So I was signed to the league as a whole and was stationed with Portland, but could be used by any team at any point during the season.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of those things about that is that obviously is that experience is, you know, kind of like it's interesting. So, you know, Saskia, I mean, it was obviously, I mean, there was the situations with a lot of players, you know, back with the national team when, you know, when you were younger and stuff like that, and there wasn't a league, and you know, people would just try to go and find and train wherever they could, you know, because the national team was almost kind of like your home base.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, I would train at Rutgers men. So I would go back to Jersey, and that was my home base if I, you know, until I went and played pro. And even after I played pro and in between stuff. So like, you just had to find what you had to do what you could do. And, you know, forever indebted to Bob Riasso and the Rutgers men's team for always welcoming me with open arms. But yeah, that was it. And then your home base was in and out of residencies and camps with the national team.
Yeah, you know, and I think, you know, one of the really cool things about this, you know, is kind of like turning it full circle, like as kind of we get into this topic and everything like that, you know. And Stan, you know, obviously you spent a tremendous amount of time in the youth game, and one of the things that, you know, you obviously experienced, you know, through your time in the youth game is that, you know, you want goalkeepers to get experience training as much as possible. So, you know, I don't know, you know, how much, you know, obviously you encouraged, you know, at FC United or at Chicago Fire and everything like that for keepers to just go out there, get games and get training wherever they could.
The reality is for me, the reality is sometimes it doesn't work what you want as a goalkeeper coach and what maybe the director of a club in the youth game may want, or even at the college level, where you may have a goalkeeper that you want to play at the highest level or train at the highest level, and they're not always welcomed in. You know, Saskia had a great situation right there. And, you know, I think that the old rooster crows and the young rooster learns, and a younger goalkeeper is going to pull from an older goalkeeper, and they're going to pull something. And I think it's important for those guys to be put in various situations and tougher situations and kind of get their backside handed to them a little bit. And
absolutely,
even if that's within the club, no problem.
I even trained with the men's national team.
Yep.
I ever tell you that story? I trained with
the
men's national
team.
team.
The Landon Donovan save?
Mhm.
The one where like Brad turned to you and he was like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah,
like,
when
he-
you mean I was trying to get out of the way and it hit me. But yeah, no, but it's part of what we're talking about is just like utilizing what I can at the highest level I can. And it was right before the World Cup. We were on a break and and they were playing in DC. And I called and they said, come on over. So I went to men's training.
I mean, Charlie, one of the things that, we kind of want to talk to you about, obviously, is that the thing is that like, is training with multiple clubs kind of that same feeling as trialing, or does it kind of feel more of like in your mind of like, I'm there for my own development rather than trying to, showcase myself?
Sure. Well, in my situation with being a pool player, it did feel a bit of both, but I viewed it mainly as a trial because I wasn't signed to a team for the entirety of the season. Although, I had a contract, I saw every team that I joined as a possible opportunity to join the full roster. And so it was always about how do I come in? How do I impress? How do I make myself a valuable part of this group?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like it is kind of like a tryout every time because
Mhm.
you want to come in. You're being brought in obviously for a reason, and that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure every
Yeah.
time you go into something.
It is, and then like in the pool player situation, fortunately, unfortunately, I mean, like I wasn't thrown into a situation where I was stepping right into a game from having gone from not being on the team to like one day of training and then like being the starter the next day. But I think that you have a really quick amount of time to make an impression, right? First impressions matter. So just how you greet the group, how you interact with the coaching staff. And then I think one of my best introductions was Sporting Kansas City when I was in the bubble for the tournament, and come in, do well, joining their group, and trying to play out the back, and then make this top hand save, parry over the bar, full stretch, on a half volley from one of the guys. And so it was just kind of like, that was one of the moments of, okay, like I'm here, like you guys can count on me. And I was really happy to have that at my first day with them.
Nice.
I mean, I think that's, you just brought up a really good point. By the way, like I myself personally, like, anytime I hear top hand save, and Saskia knows this, anytime I hear top hand save, I immediately get excited. It's one of my favorite saves in the game, even though it's like overplayed on Instagram for completely out of context. Although Zach Steffen had a fantastic one today for Man City. Oh boy, no spoilers, guys, no spoilers on that Man City Man United
Always do
semifinal.
that.
I know, I'm an idiot. I do it in the group threads too. So
Yeah.
Saskia had that happen to me. Go ahead, Sam.
The Carabao Cup, is that what you're talking about today?
Yeah. I'm talking about the or as I call it, the Caribou Cup, because I cannot pronounce
Well,
Carabao.
as long as he's over the back pass, it's fine with me.
Yeah, that was Charlie. You going into all those environments, no matter what, if you would have had that shot because of how pliable you are and how you can meld into a team pretty quickly, you're a dependable dude. Had that call happened, you would have kicked ass in whatever match it was. It's just the character you have. It's not about you. It's about the team, and so that would have carried you well.
Yeah,
Appreciate that. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and I would say not everybody could do what you did. Number one, egos get in the way and stuff. It's not to be that utility player, to be in the bubble, and to not the bubble for COVID, the bubble or the pool, and kind of take advantage of every opportunity you get. It takes a certain person to do that.
Well, I appreciate that. It did come, it wasn't easy. You're right, because there's those moments of like, oh, I'm going to get a shot, like, here's my shot. And then, something doesn't materialize from it, and that's just part of it. But, you don't treat it any different. You never know what's going to come of it. So you keep showing up each time as if it's going to be the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and actually, I wanted to talk to Stan about this, because obviously, you obviously in the club environment, you've had, or even in the college environment, sometimes, Stan, with spring season and stuff like that, you have kids that kind of come in and out and everything like that. Like, what's kind of like the role with with the coach in this situation, and and how do you handle this so that you give them the most that you can, and not kind of look at them as like, oh, they're just here as a training keeper.
Sorry about the dog keeper there in the background. It's I think we have UPS arriving at the door.
Oh, wait till mine shows up.
Oh, both of them, Coco and Chanel, are going to go.
And Jagger.
Mm.
Sorry, go ahead.
true.
Go ahead.
No matter those scenarios, Charlie's going to run with it, whether it was in the youth game where I originally saw him, or then in the college game. And my time with Charlie was truncated at the college game, and he came in with a pretty significant injury, and really worked his ass off hard to come back. And it was not your standard, even a standard ACL injury, and that's not standard, but it's commonplace. His was a little bit more unique in a PCL situation, and it ended up being difficult. But I'll tell you what he did is he stabilized everything, including his knee, and then put himself in a situation where he was goalkeeper of the league, and that's not easy to say. And ended up doing extremely well. Kirk, Dougie put a lot into him as a youth. He carried himself extremely well. National teams fell in love with him, and off he went on and did the college game and became a pro, and that was his goal.
When I was coaching club here for the Bull, we shared our keepers all the time in training, all the time, and crossover girls and guys. It wasn't my certain female goalkeepers would go over to the 04 boys or something like that if they had training after, or anything if Kelly needed another goalkeeper, and there was not even a hitch. It was like, yeah, go ahead and take this person or go ahead and take that person and get in that environment. It wouldn't go the opposite direction. It would always go the upper first, so they got a harder training. But we shared them all the time. So I know that I saw that Hector was asking that question. So.
The biggest
go ahead, Stan.
The biggest challenge, thank you, is when a younger goalkeeper thinks they can compete at the older level, and they're not ready for it.
Yeah.
Charlie, in Charlie's case here anyway, he was already physically imposing when he was 13, 14 years old. But there are many that think they're quick enough and they can handle it, and then they end up with buckle fractures in their wrists and such because they're not ready for the pace of play.
Oh, I'm brutal. I tell them no.
Exactly.
And they would look at me at club and be like, why did so-and-so go up to that group? And I'm like, because you're not ready for that.
Exactly.
You're not ready for it. You might be in your mind, you might think you are, but you're not.
Right.
So you and I have to work on some stuff.
But Charlie, like as a player and stuff like that, do you appreciate that kind of honesty?
I think it's difficult to hear when you're young and you're itching to get it. But at the same time, like it is important because it kind of fuels the fire in a sense. Like, and you want coaches that are going to be honest with you. And it is a coach's responsibility not to put you in a situation where you're going to get hurt and you're going to be worse off. And so, it really depends on the player's ability to trust the coach and their decision in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point in regards to that because, like, I think we've talked about it. We've even talked about it, recently with some Bundesliga coaches, is just trust between the goalkeeper coach Stan and this, and the goalkeeper is just so monumental because if you don't have that trust, especially in an environment where maybe somebody's either trialing, or they're coming in as a development keeper to work with a first team, it's going to be very difficult for them to be successful, right?
Oh, hugely. I think trust and goalkeeper and staff, those three words are probably the biggest when you're talking about the Bermuda Triangle of goalkeeping right there. Mm-hmm. It's hugely important. The interactions physically are so limited, but that interaction, that relationship is huge. And you look today with the Bradys and the Gaga Slaninas and the Lopez, I think it is, out of LA, and who else do we have? Beckham Sunderland. And, a lot of these guys are signing at 16, 17 years old and doing well within their teams. Brady went to Forward Madison and had a full season and I think he was either Young Player of the Year or Young Goalkeeper of the Year. Years ago, not only the platform wasn't there, but now they can do that and play. In days of me growing up in this game, a 17-year-old goalkeeper, there's not a chance of them having a shot at the professional level. B, training with a college team or an equivalent old school PDL team. Those days just didn't happen. Now you got a 17-year-old getting Young Player of the Year in a pro league. It's it's a different time right now.
No, I totally agree with you. Yeah, it was, back maybe like a couple decades after Stan, but but no, it was true. Goalkeepers needed experience, and that oh wait, Stan, did he leave? Goalkeepers needed experience, game experience, understanding, and organization. They also needed the respect of back when I was playing too, and the more experience you got, the older you got, the more respect you got from, directing older players and stuff like that, the better you became. At 17 years old, like back then, no, you needed experience.
Well, it's funny you brought that up, Stan. By the way, honestly, Stan, I'm really blown away with your knowledge of the youth goalkeeping development scene. It's almost as if you had like a scouting report right in front of you right now of all the top young goalkeepers in the Midwest or something like that. So shout out to whoever prepared that whole cross section for you.
Guys,
maybe it was Bill Reno.
Unbelievable. His mind is unbelievable. The amount of names that are in that mind, I've never seen anything like it.
But let's talk about Charlie for a second. So Charlie goes into a college situation. Charlie's the high profile recruit. Charlie was the guy that we were able to sign, which I'm sure Saskia was in her day. You're recruiting a number one, so to manage Charlie's coming in, he probably thinks that, in his mind or otherwise, he's going to be the number one right away. David Check was the unheralded dude in Charlie's time, but he was a freak of nature. He could fly like an eagle. The guy was a very, very, very good goalkeeper. And you run into those dynamics in goalkeeping where, one guy thinks, okay, I've been with the national team and I'm going to end up at this school and, all these sorts of things. And you've got to manage that in a coach-player relationship. But the player has to manage it more so in this 6-inch relationship with themselves to realize, am I good enough? Am I not? What do I need to do? I am better. All those things that play out on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, and that comes down on the coach and the environment as well. I mean, if you look at like Lauren now, the starter at UCLA, she was behind Tegan when she came in, and she learned a lot from Tegan. But that's how Amanda and everybody, and Jenny, and that was before I was there. Like that's what they made happen. No, you're not. Whether you think so up here or not. And, she learned from Tegan and she developed herself and she's phenomenal now. And was ready to take over the reins, regardless of your status coming in from club guys, like.
Well, I mean, but you brought up a good point.
Probably not ready.
Thank God, Stan, that you did not say, Charlie was very heralded, coming up, in his day, as I'm sure Saskia wasn't in her day. Thank God you didn't say, and Michael too, because I was not heralded in any way whatsoever. So
I did walk in and start though at Rutgers, but that was the situation as it was. Had I gone to UNC when I was recruited, had I gone to one of the other schools, I probably would have sat behind Lori Walker if I had gone to UNC at that point, and so on and so forth, even though I'd already been in national team stuff. So that would have happened to me as well.
Yeah,
Michael, I did not know the pedigree. I was unaware of that. I did not have Bill Reno notes. Charlie didn't tell me. He didn't set me up and tell me how many years you were recruited by Rutgers or UNC or Stanford prior to your time. So I apologize if we can edit the show.
But I have a Charlie question. Do you feel that because coming into college and going through that, being number one recruit and then not playing right away kind of helped you with what you had to do in the sense with the MLS, being that pool player and going into teams like that, because you did go through that in your college career?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's easy to look back at my college career and see the final 3 seasons that I played and see me as the number one and see what was accomplished during that time. But what is often overlooked is the 15 months spent rehabbing, learning to walk, learning to run again, then coming back from the injury, not having had a game until preseason in over 15 months, not doing particularly well. And then when I did finally get a shot, my first college game was not good.
No, it
Not
wasn't.
good. It was not good.
I love the way Stan does that. He's like, oh, we're not gonna go there, but yeah.
I think he was waiting to see what you're gonna say. That's what
and so it sucked, but I knew that Stan wasn't I trusted him in the fact that I knew that I didn't play well enough, but I also knew that he believed in me long term. And so even though I wasn't playing, I also knew that I just had to be a part of the team at that point. And after that performance too, I'm like, I'm not ready. I got to support the guy in front of me, and hopefully if I get my chance later in the year, then I'm going to be ready. So Saskia, to your point, it helped me because I had been the number one through the academy days, through club days, and so that was really the first taste of being a number two, being a supporting player, and being a guy that needed to be more about the team than about myself.
Yeah, welcome to my entire national team career. I love you, Bri. Still support you to this day.
But one really interesting thing about this is, and you're talking about both you guys in regards to talking about coming in and sitting. I find personally, when I speak to a lot of goalkeepers, especially who try to move on to the professional level, those goalkeepers who never faced any sort of adversity and that always, and I know we're completely diverting off the topic here, but I think it's important for young goalkeepers to hear this. Those goalkeepers that never faced adversity, that always got playing time, that never that never struggled, never had to deal with an injury, never had to deal with competing for a spot. Once they got to that pro level, Charlie, and I'm sure you saw this, they couldn't handle rejection because they'd never been rejected before.
Yeah, for the guys that it's too easy or it just comes too naturally, when that adversity comes, they don't have the tools in their toolkit to deal with it. I mean, I outlasted players through my career, both in youth and college and pro, that I think were far better physically gifted or athletically or technically. But it was just, this mindset, this ability to put in the work over time that I think sustained me. And I think that's what it is. You want the right mix, sure. You need the certain physical gifts, a certain ability, but you also need to have enough adversity that kind of hardens you along the way to be able to do the whole journey.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I meant by that ego, that mindset. Oh, and I can bring somebody up that got put on the bench and do a temper tantrum. I
could say it.
It was absolutely it was horrible. But it's that mindset, and it's people will go by the wayside. And because of that, where if you can look inside yourself and do what you did and take your time and put the time in and understand it's not about you, it's about the team, you have longevity in that.
Yeah. And I think that also, I mean, in regards to kind of coming back to this, Charlie, is that if you obviously moving on to the next part of your career right now, right? Your next part of your journey outside of the game and everything like that. If you had developed that type of either reputation or that type of a work ethic because you thought everything was handed to you, imagine now going into the, to the public workforce as a civilian, quote unquote, how I don't want to say, how much of a failure you would be, but how inept, unprepared for the real world you would be.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, that's one of the many great things about sport and about what you learn through, being in the arena, so to speak. But I think the game, and, I think all of you, you guys have all crossed that threshold before I have. I think you can speak to the fact that the game continues to give you things that you didn't realize that it had. You start to look back and you go, man, wow, that experience was so much richer than anything I even knew at the time. And so I'm starting to see it, but I'm excited to see where the rest of that goes.
Yeah, I think being adaptable is huge, and you would have not being a pool player, but having a reputation of, not a good reputation for being adaptable, you wouldn't have been brought in.
Right.
You would have sat in the pool, and you would have sat in Portland or wherever you were, and they would have called a different goalkeeper in that was in the pool.
Sure.
That was adaptable, and that did put the team first, and it did think that way.
Yeah, and I don't think I have a second year of being a pool player if I'm
Absolutely, they would absolutely.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tim Kelly right there. Your job as a number 3 goalkeeper is to certainly be good, but hugely important for you to be liked. And there's no room for a cancer third goalkeeper on a team. It just it doesn't. And third goalkeeper at the pro level is elite.
Mm-hmm.
They're fantastic. You have a third goalkeeper on a club team or something, it might not be, but pro level, are you kidding me? And there's just no room for it.
No, you definitely want to be liked. Absolutely. And I don't mean the party person off the field. I mean, but you want your team, when you come in and you're playing small sided or you're doing whatever your team, you want them to love having you behind them, period. Even if you are third, if you're a pain in the ass, you're not, your life's short-lived.
It is.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Well, and just in that vein too, I mean, I was fortunate to have some really good examples in front of me my first year as a pro, having Stephen Fry and Troy Perkins to be understudies to, and the thing that stuck with me from Steph and the mentality of the group was that he was representing our work for the week, and so he put a lot of pressure on himself in that sense of he's representing our goalkeeping core. But to me, it helped me reframe of okay, if I'm pushing Steph in training, the save that he made in the MLS Cup final, that's stuff I've seen him do in training. It's no mistake that happened. And also too, because the rest of us were in there pushing him, making similar saves. And so, granted, it takes a special person to pull that off in that moment. I'm not saying that we all step in and make that save that Steph made, but when the number one makes it easy to be supportive of, that's obviously an ideal situation when you are the 2 or the 3.
Absolutely.
I absolutely love what you just said right there, Charlie. And I think a lot of young goalkeepers out there who are listening to this, and goalkeeper coaches out there who are working with goalkeepers who might not necessarily be, on their team, but they're coming because at the club level. And Stan, this, you get that kid who really wants to play at FC United. He's just not at the level, and he keeps coming out in the off season, and he's training with you, and he's doing privates with you and everything like that. And you want them to understand that every time they go to a different club to get some training in, learn what they can, maybe not just from the goalkeeper coach, but also like Charlie, like you're saying, from the number 1 at that club,
Mm-hmm.
We had a kid in St. Charles who I just coached the goalkeepers. 12 years old. He showed up for a couple of years with jean shorts, his guards outside his socks, the sport recs, the whole thing. He was a heavy kid, struggled, but he worked. He showed up. He struggled. He worked. He showed up. And you fast forward until I came back for an event or whatever it was at his age at about 17, 18 years old. He had put on 8 inches of height, lost probably 40 pounds, and ended up at a scholarship player at Dayton and had a fantastic career. And if you look at that kid at 12 to 14 years old, you're going, no. But they just keep working, showing up. The guy was a joy to be around. Boom, opportunities unfold.
Yeah, well, until I left club, I had a couple kids like that I, when first started with them, they, you're just like, I don't know how this is going. And then they come back from summer and they're 6 inches taller and they've grown in at our feet. And now everything you have been going over clicks and they're just a different keeper but they're a joy to be around. They work so hard. They don't give up.
The difference for Charlie is that, Charlie at 12 was already, dare I say, but he was already Charlie Lyon. You could tell it. Dougie worked with him quite a bit, and Dougie knew, and you could just tell that he was. And so rare is that player that fulfills the promise, and that's what Charlie did.
Yeah.
That's why there's a hashtag of IWCLN. I want Charlie Lyon now.
That was the running communication while I was being recruited. They were anxious to get me committed to Marquette, and I'm glad I did.
Nice.
I would just love to be a hashtag. That'd be amazing. I would feel so important.
I can give you some hashtags.
Please.
Well, Saskia, you are definitely a hashtag already, so you don't need help with that. But yeah, I would love to someday be a hashtag. Hopefully, in a positive note. I know some people trend them for negative reasons. We don't want that kind of a hashtag to go on. Charlie, I want to ask you about this because obviously, like, you're not in the youth game right now. I know you've been in the pro environment and everything like that. But if you were a youth player right now, and you're in the off season, right? You don't have a club because a lot of kids, and Stan, you know this, because the COVID situation, some clubs are training, some clubs aren't. Some facilities are open, some facilities aren't. What advice would you give them? Would you give them to just, train with every club you can, or to find a home base?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you want a place that is a home base that you can have your development, be anchored to. Like, you want to have a place where you believe in the coaching staff, you believe in the direction the club is going, 100%. But if that's not something that's available to you, or that's something that you're still searching for, then I would say, yeah, go see what other clubs have, and then furthermore, that experience, not only do you get exposed to different styles and philosophies, but it also helps refine your ability to judge a club as you're going into it, because you can start to identify the things that you do and don't like. So, I would never sit here and say, yeah, don't go train with somebody if you have the opportunity. I was exposed to, I think I counted it, I mean, with being on trial, I don't know, like maybe 8 or so different MLS clubs and goalkeeper coaches. And so, like there's a lot of really valuable things from doing that.
Oh my God. I mean, I think that's just so huge. And Saskia, I know you've talked about this consistently, is like, we talk about this all the time, is don't stick with one coach. Like, you have to, what's going to happen? You go to college and you're not going to be able to handle another voice because you've had the same voice literally your entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, don't be afraid to, like, don't be that kid that's just like, well, Stan told me to do it this way. What everybody else says is the wrong way. You know what I mean? I understand that that goalkeeping's gray, and that take little bits from here and there. Develop yourself as like a well-rounded goalkeeper. And you get kids that do that. I'll have kids, when I was coach club, I have kids that come back in the summer, or even like when they come into college, and they're like, well, when we do this, we do it this way and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, let's have a discussion about it. Like, you know what I mean? Let's see the pros and cons on this way. Why don't you try it this way? Let's figure it out. Let's find a middle ground. Or no, your other coach is totally wrong and I'm right. But
that's probably what I would say. I would say it is like, hey, listen to Saskia. Okay, just don't.
In the same respect, saying that, you also have to be smart and careful about it. Like, I don't want you with, if you're going to ask me my advice, I don't want you like skipping balls off the ocean and jumping through a hula hoop, tell me what you're learning, like certain things. Like you have to be able to know what is putting your career in the right direction and what's not helping you at all.
I mean, you brought up a really good point. And Stan, obviously, especially with Campshutout, you get kids from all over the world who've had so many different voices in their heads the other time. Is it a disadvantage also for kids if they're not getting at least consistency with one club or one goalkeeper coach? So they have so many voices, but there's not enough time with either one for anything to really stick.
I don't know if the sticking is the issue. I think going to as many as possible is good. It's not going to be the kids' fault when they do that. I think in some cases it's going to be the coach's fault and what they deliver.
Yeah.
To what Saskia is saying about being in the ocean or jumping over fire and things like this, whether you're in the States or the Czech Republic, wherever that is, there are coaches that beat the crap out of you as a youth player. And I think that 14 to 18-year-old window of let's say a youth goalkeeper, that's a precious time where you can really get beat up and no one really is paying attention.
Right.
Not every club is giving goalkeeper instruction So our position, I think, allows us to go somewhere else and hop into training, even at another club, and not feel threatened like you're being recruited or anything else, because you might not be getting any goalkeeper training at your parent club. So, how can you blame a kid for going to club Y when club X isn't giving you anything to at least get some training in? And that's too commonplace in our position.
I also think that if you are with a coach that has an issue with that, then find another coach. Like a good example would be Jamie Campbell, right? You've trained Jamie, Ian trains Jamie, I've trained Jamie, and none of us have a problem with it. You're like, oh, you're with Mike today, or oh, you're with, awesome. I know, all you guys as coaches, and we're all on the same page, and we communicate, and parents communicate and stuff like that, and we know she's getting the best of the best when she's training, and there's no problem. But if I'm sitting here going like, I can't believe that you went and did a private with Mike or with Ian, no, forget, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. As long as it's quality and you're getting the training in, like, get it.
Yeah.
Well, the
Charlie,
reality
go ahead, Sam.
about Charlie is, Dougie Cardozi, we don't see eye to eye on everything. We have massive respect for each other. But Charlie and Dougie, there was a very, very good relationship back then. And, me going through Dougie to recruit somebody, I'm going to have the utmost belief in him.
All right.
So, that was an easy recruit. Now, there's some people just philosophically you don't gel with. And that's where I think the coach themselves is a bigger responsibility, because of how their reputation is, could open doors or could close doors for a kid.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just brought up a really, really good point right there. Like, Charlie, obviously you've had some great influences, in your life, not only just at the, youth level, the college level, but also at the professional level. I've spoken to a lot of MLS goalkeeper coaches. There's a reason you were in that pool so consistently and so often called in, is because not only did you have a great reputation every single time you came in, right? You were of the level, but they also respected the work ethic that you had when you went there, because you knew your role and you weren't trying to show I'm better than all your other goalkeepers, yada, 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 yada. No, you were there to fill a role, and whatever the club needed from you, you were there to service them.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is something I've reflected on in my career. And so I think there was maybe, I certainly had that part of being able to understand and know that I'm not the best thing to ever happen to goalkeeping. Like I knew that I wasn't the pinnacle of it.
Yeah, that's Omar. That's Omar Zini.
Yeah.
That's why he's not here right now. He's showing his magic to the other. He's sharing his magic with the youth of America.
Showing the world.
Omar. I'm sticking up for you, Omar.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, to that point, like, I knew that I wasn't the end all be all of goalkeeping, and like that I always had more to learn, and that being at the pro level and being exposed to a bunch of different teams and clubs, I realized how small the margins are, so it's just any given day, any one of us could step in and have a similar performance. And so I didn't believe, that I needed to come in and, make it a pissing contest and then mess up the chemistry of the group. Like all of a sudden it was just like, all hands on board. We got to win this game tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point, Charlie. And I want a lot of young goalkeepers to hear that, is that, like, guys, if you think that's the way to win a job at a club or to get signed by a club, a youth club, Stan, this, Saskia, this, and obviously Charlie, this, like, no, that's actually going to be detrimental to you getting signed by a club.
Sure.
Big time, man. Big time. That's like nails on a chalkboard for me, right?
Absolutely.
I've got no time for people like that.
Not at all. And it's just, your team has to feel that as well. And like if you are coming in there and it's a pissing contest and like you said, nails on a chalkboard, and if you come, it's horrible. It's horrible for the chemistry of the team. It's horrible for anything. And I will go back to that game with Hope Solo against Brazil and Bry, because the attitude for being put on the bench, yeah, we lost. Okay, fine. But the attitude for being put on the bench, the energy that was being put on there, the nails on the chalkboard and everything was a cancer for the entire team. And yeah, you lost, and so, coming in with a total different mentality in that situation, having total confidence in Bri, giving a different energy out would have, who knows what the outcome would have been then. If you were up there cheering on, all right, it's okay, 1 goal, no big deal. Like, you know what I mean? Instead it's the total opposite, and it's just infectious. And so, no, I can't stand goalkeepers like that either. And I wouldn't want them on my team at all.
Yeah.
At all.
And for the, for the young players listening, like, that's not to say that you need to have some level of self-belief and something that transcends the, where you're at, in the sense that you believe that you have more to give, right? That you do believe that you deserve to be a number one if you perform that way, right? But at the end of the day, there's only one of us in goal at a time, and you want those around you to also support you when you have that opportunity. To have a toxic environment where you guys are, going back and forth, like, you guys, it's, to me, it seems better to work in a way which you are both supporting each other, because take for instance, so like my career, I could never get away from Tyler Miller. He came into Chicago, the PDL team, and they liked him better. I leave for Seattle after I had to get my rights released and go train while I was still in college, leave for Seattle and Columbus, and build a relationship with Seattle, ultimately how I end up there. But they had eyes on Tyler, couldn't get away from him there. I would go to Orange County for an opportunity to be with LAFC the following year. Could not get away from Tyler. But what I realized was that I don't want to beat Tyler because I was doing these underhanded things. I was messing up his service. I was trying to get in his head, like say things to him. Like, that would be horrible. Like, that's not because I beat him out because I actually deserved it. Like, I only wanted to be on the field because I knew I deserved it,
Yeah.
And so, like, I hope that other goalkeepers can see that. Like, you have to have that belief that you can step in and do it and be the number one. But yeah, you don't want to do it through undercutting the person in front of you.
No, I think if we go back to what you said before, that goalkeeper's representing all of your work all week in practice. So Bri was always representing how hard her and I worked. Whether she was starting or not, I knew that because of how hard I was working and pushing her and how hard she was working, she was pushing me, knowing that had something happen and I've been put in, that my teammates, as I've been told, I'm not assuming this, they never thought there's a drop in level. They never worried about it. It was one, whether it was 1 and 1.5, it was what it was, but we created that by working with each other and not having any animosity or anything, and exactly, like, I want to be number one and start because that's the way it is, not because I was mean to Bri and gave her bad services or like, got into her head or something like that. Like, that would be horrible.
Maybe some adults right now in the world should learn that lesson. I don't know. Anyway, that's the only comment I'm going to make right now.
Doubly hard at the youth level because it's the goalkeeper and the parent. These guys,
absolutely.
Examples where it's the person themselves and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And so, when you have it at the youth level and someone else is trying to basically lawnmower their way for you as an opportunity, it just doesn't end up boding well for you in the short term or the long term, in my opinion.
No, absolutely.
Now, I think a lot of you guys are listening to this and going like, wow, I mean, it sounds like, Charlie, obviously, had to go through a lot of different struggles in order to make his opportunities happen. And I want to kind of share basically the fruits of your labor type of a thing. Charlie, one of my favorite performances of you personally is that friendly against Borussia Dortmund, where you had some incredible moments. And honestly, if I had to say one thing, if your entire career was all to be able to get this opportunity right there, I would say, what a successful career. Because, to have that opportunity at LAFC in front of all those people against a world-class club like that. So I want to share, this with the audience right now. And this is one of the first saves. Is actually after Tyler Miller played in the first half.
Look at Stan.
You came in, and I think it was at the 69th minute right now. I think basically what happens is Alexander Isak plays the ball to Maximilian Philippe. Oops, hold on. Let me turn off that volume right there. Plays that ball. to Maximilian Philippe on the volley. Boom. Look at that. Look at that steer right there. Are you kidding me? I think we need to go back and see that, how that kind of developed right there for the audience who's like listening on the audio right here. Again, like I said, basically ball's played to Isak. Isak plays the slip ball on the bounce. Got to love that bounce, MLS bounce. And Maximilian Philippe, the hit, the steer, and look at the eyes. I want everyone to see that, because now you're in a position for recovery save to cover that gap and be there. What a brilliant save, right, Stan?
Yeah, 100%. And what's cool is there's people in the stadium. Holy cow! That's outstanding.
The best part of the clip right now. Who would have thought? Who would have thought we'd be in that position?
But he's ready. You know, I mean,
he's ready.
That's a training save right there. You know, shot at the top of the 18 and a fair enough crack. And that's, you know, whether it's BBB or somebody from the academy that took the crack, he's making the save.
Well, and that's the thing for, you know, any of the young ones listening. Like you get into those moments, and you know, it is surreal. It's surreal to be on the field in that moment. You know, 20,000 in this stadium and playing against Dortmund, and you know, like it's surreal. But you fall back in those moments. Like there's no time to think. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. The shot, whether it's come off of a teammate's boot, you know, an academy player's boot, or you know, the best player in the world's boot, like, you know, you still have to address the shot. And so I think that's the thing, is just really trusting the work that you put in the week and you know, over the course of your career. And then those moments happen and you don't even have to think about it. It just is this expression of something kind of bigger, you know, than just that moment.
Yeah. You know, and I think I also want for a lot of young goalkeepers out there listening and stuff like that to see this, is that, you know, to recognize how competitive the professional environment is. Those two players I mentioned right there that he made the save on, Alexander Isak and Maximilian Philippe, are no longer at Dortmund, right? Neither one of them is at Dortmund. That's how cutthroat it is at the professional level. So the fact that Charlie was able to train and play with multiple clubs at the MLS level, you all have to recognize that he's one of the 0.00001% of you youth players out there, you know? You know, I really want them to hear that.
It's so accurate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate that. It's taken a lot of reflection, because as I've talked to people, as I've made this transition from the game, you know, I was a kid. I had really big dreams going in. Like I wanted to surpass Howard. You know, like I wanted Tim Howard to not even, you know, be a footnote in what I did. You know, and so like I didn't even get close. You know, like I didn't even get close to accomplishing some of these goals. But, you know, I look back and to then put it in that context, you're right. Like, you know, one of however many people that made it to the MLS, and then 6 years, you know, in it. And so it's taken a little bit of time to reframe and really appreciate the opportunity that I had and where, you know, my hard work and dedication took me. So I appreciate that.
I mean, absolutely, man. And I want to share one more of these Dortmund clips, because I just think it's honestly, you know, I want to do this almost as a little bit of a celebration to your career, you know, because I know you recently made your retirement announcement, you know, this past weekend, and you're on to some bigger and better things, which I'm really excited about. But I want to share this again.
What's up?
Before we go to that clip, because I don't want to change the subject completely, but you know, Charlie isn't even in these positions if there wasn't a woman by the name of Lauren Falk who helped him through his entry into college and his rehab from a significant injury. And here he is now at this level. And Charlie, you correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's somebody to give some or tip the hat to, that's somebody that helped change your career. 100%.
Two of the people that the surgeon, Dr. Gordon, and then Lauren, you know, those two were, I mean, I wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't have had the college career. I wouldn't have had the pro career if it weren't for the people around me that even made it physically possible to go from having to learn to walk and run again to kick a ball, you know, like started from almost from scratch at the start of the college career. And she put countless hours into me, you know, and that's for awesome. That, I'm deeply grateful.
No, that's awesome. I'm glad
No.
you said that.
No, I mean that's absolutely wonderful, and that's totally worth interrupting this clip that anyone else can find out there. But we're going to share this again. So really, what happened basically right here? I think it's a ball by Gonzalo Castro to Nuri Sahin. Here's, I think, where the ball's played up and over again. And here, Charlie, I actually want to bring up one of the things here is that because the fact that you trained with so many different MLS teams, you played in so many different systems, you saw so many different types of scenarios. When you got into a situation against a Dortmund like this, you were prepared for any of these types of moments, as opposed to a lot of young goalkeepers who are training, let's just say, with one club who just plays one system. You know, if they're thrown into the unknown, they don't know how to react to it. Come out, stay big right there. And brilliant save right there. Again, come out, fast approach, slow arrival, hold shape. Boom, great save. Again, positive movement, out of
But
bounds.
it's the movement while the ball is traveling in no man's land that makes this save. A lot of young goalkeepers out there, they're going to wait till that ball hits the ground, then they're going to try to come. And instead, while this ball is in transit, he's already moving. And by the ball drops, he's already in the right position. And you see a lot of young goalkeepers, they'll wait, then they'll come. And you're dead in that situation. And you try to tell them, move into that space while nobody can touch the ball, while it is in that dead zone. And now, boom, when that ball drops on the Dortmund foot, you're in position. You're right there.
And I think it's difficult. What you learn as you work through some of these situations is the timing of it, so that you're not too greedy and taking more than you need. Like sometimes, the correct adjustment is smaller than you think.
Absolutely.
But to your point, there's times where you have the opportunity and you really need to take ground. And so it's being able to find that balance there.
It's a good thing that you brought that up, because I think the thing is that, especially like when we're talking about going back to the topic of training with multiple teams, is a lot of kids when they go into a new environment, they really want to showcase themselves and really want to do more than they need to, or overextend themselves, and in a situation like that, I'll be honest with you, if that was me, I would have been sprinting all the way to Sahin, because I would have been so excited to try to get there and try to get that ball. But you recognized, and you had discipline to recognize, I have to cover ground and I have to hold here.
Well, and I'm glad we circled back to this, because this was something that had kind of stayed in my mind. I made a note to come back to it, because I talk about my introduction to Kansas City and the top hand save and all that kind of stuff. Yes, that's important if you're given the opportunity to make that save, but make the save that's in front of you. Don't go into a trial, don't go into a new situation thinking you got to go make the top save and miss every single save you should have made in the meantime.
Thank you for saying that.
Thank you. You need to make the saves, and then if you have the opportunity to do something brilliant, do it. But be consistent, do the things that you're supposed to do. That's how you support the team. That's how you make an impact.
Do the basics, please. And I tell young players that all the time, and even in college, I'm like, good on you. But if you're going to ask me 1,000 times, I'm going to tell you, I don't care if they score that top hand goal. If you just let up 5 easy, like basic, like cookie cutter plays, like, you know what I mean? So, great, make the top hand save, make the upper 90, but then don't do the basics and make a mess of everything else. That's not supporting the team. You know, that's what you need to be getting done.
100%. And for me, like, I really see a mark of a quality goalkeeper, and I think it's those who have been in the game, for a while can recognize it, is you make something that's difficult look so easy.
Absolutely.
It looks so routine. And you, like, as a young player, you need to fall in love with handling, positioning, and the basics, and because that is what's going to support you at the next level. Yeah, the top hand save or whatever is going to look great on Instagram for all your buddies, but if you can't catch a ball, you can't move your body behind and get your feet set. Doesn't matter. You only have likes on Instagram. You're not going to have pro contracts.
Nice, I love that.
There you go.
100%. We're all
my gosh,
from the
that's a quote.
cloth
That's
here.
a quote. That's a Charlie Lyon quote right there.
I like that. That's a hashtag.
That is a hashtag. Hashtag basics.
I love it.
But I mean, obviously, Charlie, you know this firsthand, and Stan, you know this when colleges or pro clubs or scouts, for national teams, come to you, when they're talking to you, they're not looking to asking you what outstanding qualities does this goalkeeper have in regards to, what brilliant top hand save or what amazing block shape save did they make? They're asking you, well, how clean are their feet? Can they play with both feet?
Absolutely.
How do they handle crosses? Can they pick out the right, right point of attack? Those sorts of things.
It's never an easy answer, no matter who calls. And fortunately, I've been blessed to talk to most of the schools in the country on the guys and girls side, potentially sending someone somewhere. It's never an easy.
UPS is there.
There you go. It's never an easy answer about a player unless that 1, 2, 3 and over a career, if you're at it for a while, maybe you end up with 10 to 15 that are just elite level, and you could call anybody in the country and go, hey, this is a guy for you, this is a girl for you. Charlie was one of those guys where anybody would be happy to have Charlie Lyon on their team, and he would likely at some point be a number one anywhere in the country. Those players are rare. They're extremely, extremely rare. But when they ask you about this or that player, and if there's holes, you got to be honest and say, they got to get some work in there.
To answer to I have to say this in a certain way. Whoa.
NCAA. You got to love the NCAA.
Yes, I agree with the Instagram highlight. I need, like, as all of us as coaches, if we're looking at a player and you're sending out a bunch of Instagram highlights into the upper, great, but I need to see some basics. I need to see, I need to see some training footage. I need to see how their feet work. I need to see how they handle repetitive crosses. I need to see positioning. You need to see these things. Like, you can send me a highlight reel of the best saves over 10 years, but that doesn't, I need to see more than that when I'm looking at players to understand who the player is.
And by the way, Saskia, I think
trouble right now.
I don't think you're in trouble in any way whatsoever, because that goes for every college coach. That goes for every college coach. And I'm not coaching college right now, so I can just straight up say that every college coach, in my opinion, personally, is looking for someone that first off fits their system, right? Yep. So, Charlie, in regards to your situation when you were going on trials and stuff like that, they were bringing you in because they felt that you could fit their system and you were clean. They weren't bringing you in because they saw you do something outstanding on a clip from some random game.
Right.
It's totally true. Yes, I do like seeing that. I like seeing how they work in games with the system and how they move and how they organize and stuff. But that's not what you get. Parents out there and stuff like that. Or coaches. That's not what you're getting. You're just getting highlights. And I personally always come back and say, can somebody send me some training film or something? Somebody send me something where they mess up and how they react from it. Like something, I can't.
Yeah, to see training, to see the volume of work that they're doing, to see how they handle multiple reps and and handle different situations is important, because it's and I truly believe that that we can just about any goalkeeper can have one save at one point. You can do one save, one amazing save once, right? So it's like, how do you do the basic things over and over and over again?
Exactly, because that is what you're going to be doing.
Stan just shared his 3 rules of goalkeeping.
I think it's the internet. I guess you don't have to bleep anything out.
Let's just say, we don't want the E. We don't want the E on the podcast. So
manage the simple stuff. Occasionally be brilliant, and don't
screw up.
Don't screw up. I mean, I absolutely love that. I think that's so succinct. Speaking of not screwing up, I think one of the things that happens a lot of times at youth clubs, and Stan, I'm sure you can attest for this, is that, like you were talking about, it's great to move kids around and have, goalkeepers be floaters and guest on other teams, but you need to make sure that they're level appropriate. You're not just throwing a goalkeeper because they need a goalkeeper in their session right now, or, hey, we need a goalkeeper for our finishing drills right now. I don't know. What about that U9 kid? He's got gloves. Why don't we throw that kid into the 16s DA session?
Exactly. It's a massive mistake. You got to read the room. And if you can't read the room, then you shouldn't be in the room. That's a massive deal for a goalkeeper, because we have the same, but we also have different injuries. Concussions and shoulders and hips over time, and our back is going to go, and these type of things might be unique to us. But at the end of the day, a 12-year-old, even maybe at 15, happen into that session, it's just not going to manage the pace. Guy or girl is not going to manage the pace of what those players can deliver.
And it can be detrimental. It just can have a negative effect on their training. Sure. Like, to make up for not being able to handle the pace, now they're substituting bad form or bad positioning or not understanding. And then if you're just doing that over and over and over again, you're just reinforcing bad habits.
Yeah. You see that second save that Charlie made, where he came out, exited, held his ground, shaped it, puts himself in the K save, whatever we want to call it. He maybe does that different at the college level, where his mind might be a little higher than where the level of play is for that player to bring that ball down, have the people in a tight space, and get off a nice crack. At the college level, that kid might not have that touch, and Charlie exits differently.
Absolutely.
So that's where a youth player, in putting them in with another group, there's a little bit of, honestly, there's a little bit of magic to it in how you manage their experience over time. Putting them in with the older goalkeepers, okay. Putting a younger goalkeeper in with an older team, yeah, maybe not okay.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between that, and obviously, Charlie, you were an exception to the rule because, you were kind of at a higher level as a youth player and stuff. But once you got to the MLS, I'm sure you saw in the off season when a lot of college kids would come in and train with the MLS teams, and you would recognize, oh, you know what? I hope this kid realizes it in the next couple sessions that maybe he's not at this level right now, and maybe he should not come right now. Maybe he should be training with a PDL team or something. And I'm sure obviously the goalkeeper coaches probably had that conversation with them too.
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple that come to mind. Like, I mean, there's a few where you get to train with them and you go, okay, yeah, this kid's got a future for him. And then I have one in mind, and unfortunately don't remember his name, so I can't throw anybody under the bus here, but
it's probably better.
Just had no business being on the field at all. And it was just like, not even close. And
it's probably Omar Zini, I'm guessing. It was Omar Zini.
Yeah.
We love you, Omar. We love you, Omar.
For you. Omar, I got your back.
He's gonna watch this episode and be like, I can't miss another one. I gotta be there to defend myself. But and sometimes, to the point, I think that kid that came in, it was a favor. A friend of a friend knew somebody, whatever, you get in with the club. But if you're going to call in favors, you better damn well be ready to take the opportunity that comes your way, because guess what? That door just closed because you weren't ready for it. Like, you got to have something to show, so that's, for me, one of the keys is when you have the opportunity, make sure that you're ready to seize it.
I mean, I'll throw myself under the bus kind of, in a kind of a way. Like, when I went in to train with the men's national team right before our World Cup in '99, like, I went in and Brad was there and Casey was there, and like, I was there for goalkeeper training just to keep myself sharp for our like 2 weeks off and everything like that. And then that's when Brad was like, hey, jump in. The guys are just doing shooting, and look, I'm number 2 goalkeeper in the world. Fine, if that's what you want to call me. But like, I know that it was tough. It wasn't, and it's not something I would want to do every day. And when I joke around, when Landon ripped that shot and I made that save, and I turned to Brad and he's like, oh my God, great save. I was like, I was diving out of the way and he hit me. I was trying to get the hell out of the way. But I've got Ernie Stewart and them knocking the ball so hard, the goal's at the end of shooting half a foot past the line because it's been hitting the post and moving the goal so hard. Not taking anything away from my training with obviously the best team in the world, but you know, I even know that like I couldn't do that every day. Like, it's not like, yeah, I got this. I'm training with the full team, the full men's national team every day. And look, if other women don't feel that way, and Listen, Aaron wants to say she can jump in with our men every day. Good luck, have at it. But the goalkeepers were fine. We were goalkeeper training. It was different. But getting up and getting those shots over and over and over again, it's still, I still have therapy every once in a while for that.
That's why we call it a union, though. I mean, Kate and Brad, how they feel about it is different than maybe some of the other people feel about it, and that's great that experience was there with goalkeepers in a union.
Yeah, absolutely love those guys.
I do want to say this, I think,
and Jurgen was there too.
Of course. Oh, Jurgen was playing?
I think he was just in camp.
Okay. I was just going to say. I was going to say this, though. I think I want a lot of young goalkeepers to hear this out there.
I think he
is that if you are going to go train up, or you're going to go train with a different club that maybe is a higher level club than the club that you currently play for or anything like that, be honest why you're there and have an honest conversation with them why you're here. If you're there merely for training purposes and development standpoints, then be honest about that. If you're there because you want to be looked at to join the club, you have to be honest about that. And I want parents, Stan, right, to hear this too.
Parents
because they need to be honest.
They really need to listen, parents. I mean, you've seen parents yank kids, like they'll get in a coach's face if their kid's not starting in goal. And I've had parents when I was coaching club, because let's say their player was number 2. They're like, well, we're looking at another club, and I'm like, well, I can't stop you from looking at another club. I know the club you're looking at, and you have to ask yourself a question. Are you looking for your player to develop as a goalkeeper and build over time? Or are you looking for your kid to start for a club and not develop at all? Like, in my opinion, like you have to look at the bigger picture as a parent. If you're sitting here and Stan is your club coach and your kid's number 2, but they might go play for another club that's maybe not as good, doesn't have a goalkeeper trainer or whatever, but they're going to start. Well, they're going to play every Saturday or Sunday. Are they going to develop? Like, what's the bigger picture? Because nobody cares that you played for the Bulls when you were, 13 years old, but they're damn well going to care that Stan coached you and he has the respect and what you got out of that. And by the time you're 17 years old, where you go from there.
Yeah. Joe and Janet, Charlie's parents, this sounds bad when I say this, they knew their role. They were not knocking on the door saying, Charlie's this, Charlie's that, Charlie needs this.
Yeah.
They were facilitators in the process. Charlie was the recruit. Mm-hmm. And, Saskia doesn't want to sign Julie and her mom. Julie,
no, I don't.
Julie. And I wanted to sign Charlie, and I knew that I had support from Joe and Janet. And that is a massive difference in many kids' situations day to day. And you're talking about the 1%. If Julie and mom or dad are a problem, then Saskia goes to Jennifer. Yep. It's that simple. Yep. And Julia goes somewhere else. And sorry, but that's the level that you're talking about at this time, at this level. So, move on to the next one. You don't need the headache. And there's too many of them out there.
And a lot of times Julie will have a self-inflated view of herself because her parents are a problem and think that probably Julie is better than she is. So.
Absolutely.
Well, and for all the young ones listening, I mean, like there's a lot of college coaching experience here on this call or in this podcast, and so one thing too is we talk about, yes, like be brilliant occasionally, do the small things really well, but also we're talking about stuff off the field. We're talking about character. We're talking about how you handle yourself, how you handle adversity. and that's what, these two and as coaches want to see, and that will be what gets you through as well. So what, you could have all the top saves, but if you're not able to handle adversity or be coachable or, essentially own what you're doing, you're not gonna end up on either of these two teams. Like you're not gonna end up at UCLA or you're not gonna end up playing for Stan. Like you're not. It's a total thing. It's not just a top hand save.
No,
and
absolutely.
and I think that's a really good point. And obviously, obviously Saskia and Stan at the time, you guys were coaching at such elite level schools that every kid in the you guys don't have an issue getting kids. I mean, you can find kids that they're banging down the doors.
Yeah, but we got a lot of moms and dads, and Stan knows that. Like there are kids out there. Yes, you have a lot of kids coming, and that's not the issue. But there are the inflated egos. There are the expecting to come in and I want to start right away and not understanding that that's just not going to happen. There's a word called red shirt and it usually happens. And like there's a bigger picture and they're out there more so than you think.
But I think obviously, Charlie, the fact that your parents were a little bit more hands off in that regard, and they weren't trying to beat down the doors to bulldoze you into a club or a college or whatever, really helps you out. Because let's be honest, like mom and dad's not getting you signed by LAFC. They don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was very fortunate. They were, and still are incredibly supportive, and, they made a ton of sacrifices and really made all of this possible for me. But, they also did realize that this was going to be my journey, that it was going to be me that accomplished the things. And so they were supportive, but not, and I'm sure they lived through it, but it wasn't about the success for them. It was about, just giving me the opportunity to be there. But then I had to take the rest of it. Right. Like they can only take it so far as a parent. It's up to the kid to really, they weren't, never once was it, Charlie, how many touches did you get on the ball today? Charlie, like how was, did you train? It was just like, they made sure the only rules were I had to have above C's for grades and, take care of my chores at home. Like that was the extent of how much they monitored my soccer career, so, but they got me to everywhere I needed to be. And so, for that, I'm really grateful, because then it becomes, how do I manage, I have a tough first year and a half, how do I manage the relationship with Stan? I don't need to call mom to then talk to Stan to say like, hey, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I go right to Stan and we have a conversation man to man. And he goes, that's not good enough. Yeah, you're right. Wasn't a good enough first game. So here we are, let's work at it.
Exactly.
I want a lot of parents out there to hear this, though, as we're starting to wrap up here, is when we're saying hands off, it doesn't mean be uninformed. Right. I still encourage parents to become educated, whether it's educated on the position, educated on the recruiting process, educated on, goalkeeper training, educated just on youth sports, whatever it is. Keep yourself informed, keep yourself educated, because that's only going to benefit your young goalkeeper, Right. But there's a difference between being educated, and being a helicopter parent.
Yeah.
Or what?
Or a lawnmower parent, where you just mow it all down in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. To that point, just real fast, that like, when my mom was really supportive, but like to your point, like would always go and so say, I was at a tryout and then someone goes, oh, well, have you considered ODP? We didn't know what ODP was. Like it wasn't and it's not a thing now as much, but we didn't know. So she researched, she goes, oh, this is a good opportunity for getting into college, for national team. And then she goes, well, is this something you want to do? So she was informed. She was a vehicle. She helped me get to this place of being like, oh, here's this way of competing and getting on the map. Is this something you want to do? And I said, yeah. And so I didn't know about ODP, and eventually you hear about it, but like, so you're right, be informed, but again, it's up to them to take it across the threshold, to make the most of the opportunity, the player.
Right, there's a fine line with all of this. And if we're going to use Charlie as an example here, Janet had the the most peaceful voice and presence about her ever, of anybody you sat with and talked with. It was never of a, you know, what are you going to do for us? There was genuine asks about, would there be an opportunity for this? Can you help my son achieve this? Not, you know, my son's this, and you're going to, you know, and have that. It was never that. And those people are just, they're found, to Saskia's point, they're found out just so quick. And when you're in a, you know, position of a decision-making position, you can smell that out and move on quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up here, guys, I know it's obviously been, and, you know, thank you, honestly, anybody who's been listening here on the live stream, really appreciate it. You know, we wanted a little bit of a break from reality. As we all know, it's been a little bit of an interesting day here in the United States, as this past year has been an interesting day in the United States. Well, interesting year, and I just wanted to kind of showcase some of the positivity and stuff like that. And you know, Stan, you've been doing something, you know, showcasing kind of the good of people and people coming together for one, as opposed to dividing each other. And regardless of how you feel politically or socially or whatever, you know, you put together this program that has nothing to do with, you know, whether you're red or blue or your thoughts on this social issue or that social issue, but you saw a need for people out there who've been struggling because of the recent health situation, you know, with the pandemic, and you put together a fantastic program with this Venmo challenge. And I just want you just to talk a little bit about that and just kind of this experience for you, and because I think it's going to be really important for a lot of young goalkeepers and parents out there to hear this, especially on a day like today.
Well, I appreciate you asking about it, certainly. And as far as today, as the words of Coach Ditka would say, this too shall pass, and it'll pass. The Venmo challenge, you know, every city around the country, major or small city, restaurants are hurting badly. I've been in them, as many of us have, but I've also then sat with them when they're closed. I've talked to them about a lot of topics that are related to what we're doing. And basically what we're doing is asking anybody, and that's not just people in Racine, anybody, to contribute to our Venmo challenge. And that Venmo challenge is donate a quarter, donate $1, donate $10. We've ranged from $100 to $250 in contributions. And we've ranged from $100 in what we've done as a gift all the way up to $3,000, what we've done as a gift. And that's helping restaurants. And it's helping restaurants in the moment, in that month, whatever it may be for them, help the payroll, help the tips for the staff, help stave off a bill here or there. And then we keep raising the target and raising the target. We're about $13,000 in. We're shooting for $15,000. It's small potatoes compared to Barstool, and I applaud them immensely what they're doing. But we're doing it on our level. And if people are inspired by it and do it on their own, great. If people are inspired by it and they want to contribute to us, fantastic. You know, follow the social media. Maybe later on you can put the Venmo and the Cash App on this show. But we're reaching out and helping people. We have one tomorrow at 4:30 Central Time that will be given away, and did a radio interview today about it. It's just we're just trying to help. It's as simple and as basic as that.
I mean, I think that's absolutely phenomenal, you know, and absolutely, you know, I know Saskia is in agreement that we will definitely share that link out with the audience on that. And, you know, and this is a good way, Charlie, because I know that recently with your retirement announcement, you're taking a little bit of a break from social media. So instead of following Charlie Lyon on social media, we will ask you to instead, follow this link and share this link with everybody out there. But Charlie, if anybody out there, maybe there's a young goalkeeper maybe going through the same situation as yourself or whatever, that's looking for a mentor or whatever, how would be the best way for them to connect you with it? Would it be like through Stan or something like that?
Yeah, Stan, or I mean, I am trying to start to check Instagram and emerge from the rock that I was living under for the last couple of months as I kind of made this decision. So Instagram, which I think is Charlie_Lyon, I'll try to be around. And but if you have Stan's Stan's number, obviously he can get you in touch with me. So that's what I'd say.
Well, awesome, man. And obviously, as you guys know, you can follow Saskia Weber at Saskia_Weber on all social media platforms. Contact at insidethe18media.com if you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion. Shout out to everybody who reached out to me about their youth keepers who are training with multiple teams. And we couldn't think of a better person to have on to discuss this topic than yourself, Charlie. Shout out to Stan Anderson for filling in for the world's greatest goalkeeper coach, Omar Zini, that you can follow at ProGK Academy _ on social media. Thanks. You can follow Stan Anderson at Campshutout. That's all one word on all social media platforms. Or is it Camp_Shutout?
Various platforms. Just dial it in.
Just dial it in. That's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later, guys.